can be a strong motivator and you can do a lot on your own, but at some point in your life you will need some help somewhere, and it's important to understand that you can reach out and really lean on people every now and again.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Pete Hoffman, president of Orange Research. Pete, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Pete, it's the Made in America podcast. So we start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
So we make differential pressure and flow instrumentation gauges. And why we make it, well, it's really something my grandfather started the business with. He used to work for Ashcroft as an engineer. One of his friends asked him to take two pressure gauges and make one out of it to put on his filtration unit. And what happened is that he made it out of his barn in Orange, Connecticut, and he was researching a new way to make these differential pressure gauges. He developed a system of magnetic coupling the gauges, and that's how the company Orange Research got started.
Because he was researching how to do it in Orange, Connecticut.
That's it. Nothing about oranges.
Nothing about oranges. Yeah. And now really not so much even about research.
No, not really. So that's how it came to be, and we've just kind of kept it ever
Stuck
since.
with it. That's really funny. Someone sat down at a kitchen table and was like, what should we call this thing? And then boom, Orange Research came out. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. Love that story. Pete, we got a lot to cover today. I know digital transformation's been important to you. We got some lean stuff to talk about. You're super engaged in the manufacturing community in Connecticut, not just inside of Orange Research, which I think we can call OR from now on.
OR is easier.
Yeah, which we can in OR. But you just done a lot there, and just what you guys do itself is even interesting. You sort of talked about it started off as sort of a 2-for-1 deal, right? How do I take two gauges and make it into one, which you guys have done super successfully and now are in so many interesting applications. So we got a whole bunch of that to cover. But I think it's been so important on this podcast to help people see the journey into manufacturing and what a career in manufacturing looks like. And I'm always fascinated by people's kind of different paths into it. So let's kind of start off with that. I know your grandfather, founded the business. So just can you maybe start with when that happened and how you ended up in the business?
For him, that was back in the 60s.
Before your time.
Much well before my time. He started off, an engineer, always loved to work with his hands, always wanted to be creating something. He started it, like I said, his own work in his barn, an actual barn that you think
were there animals in the barn?
There were no animals, no. Right. Concrete floor, Bridgeport machines, tooled shadow boards everywhere. He was very meticulous about his tools and everything he worked with.
I guess if you're going to be someone that makes precision measuring equipment, you're probably going to be pretty diligent in how you set it up.
Very much so.
Nice.
And he basically just started it out of there to talk. He always called it his hobby that got out of control. And that's really how the company got started. And then he went on his own, and it just started from the first gauge, and then someone else asked him about an application, came to the second gauge, and it was all differential pressure to start, but then we added flow down the line as a different type of measurement that we felt we can get into as well, and it worked out, and it's been growing ever since.
So let's actually talk a little bit about what it is you guys do, and then we'll talk about sort of how you got into it. So you talk about sort of pressure and flow and all that stuff. So for those of us that aren't in the biz, can you maybe just explain a little bit about what that is? Like, what are we doing here?
Sure. So differential pressure. Basically, most people would hear about a pressure gauge, and you're measuring pressure. But what differential pressure does is a lot of applications have an inlet and an outlet of a particular application like filtration, and they need to change out their filter elements. So basically what our gauge does is it replaces two pressure gauges, one on the inlet side and one on the outlet side, and then takes that measurement and does the math for you. So as an operator or anyone else that's working on the particular line, they know when to change out that filter without having to sit there and try and do the math and figure out when it needs to get changed out. And that makes a big difference, because if you leave your filtration unit not not changing out that filter element, then it could overheat, it could break, and really what our instrument does is you take a low cost model, and you're really protecting like a $30, $40, sometimes $50,000 piece of equipment with only maybe like a couple $1,000 gauge. So it just really makes a lot of sense, and it's just great preventative maintenance.
So the idea, just if I can repeat back in my simple terms, so I've got something that's flowing from down a line, let's say, and it's being filtered. So I just was doing something on a gas can and noticing like the filter between pouring out of the gas can and into the gas tank to like filter out particulates. Now that's obviously not what you guys measure, but the idea being that I've got continuous flow of something with a filter in the middle, and it's coming in at some level of flow, and then it goes through the filter, and ideally it's coming out the other side at the consistent level of flow, or at least amount that I want, and going in. But as the filter continues to filter things out, it gets more and more full, which reduces the flow. And so if it's a cooling element in your example, I'm not getting enough coolant to the other side of that filter, which ultimately could break the machine. And so if I understand correctly, in the old days, I was measuring the PSI or the flow level, gallons per minute, whatever, coming in, and another gauge on the other side measuring the gallons per minute, let's say on the other side of the filter. And then someone's got to do some math to figure out what is the differential here, and is it too much? And what Orange Research created was one gauge that just tells you, it doesn't matter if it's 10,000 on one side and 9,500, you're just going to see 500, and you're told, hey, if the differential gets over 500, change the filter. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there were probably similar gauges out in the market, but what my grandfather did is he created the magnetic coupling system. And what that did is it took the pressure out of the actual gauge face of the unit. So what would happen in a metal linkage pressure gauge is it would bend over time and break because of the pressure that was inside of the unit. So my grandfather did is he took two magnets, one inside the pressurized line and one outside, and then created that system to relieve the stress that are on the internals and let the gauge last for a longer period of time.
Wow. So not only the gauge to replace two gauges, but then another innovation to make that unified gauge last a lot longer.
I mean, most innovation comes from taking something that's already out there and making it a little bit better.
That's right, man. That's what evolution is all about. So going back to kind of your story, I mean, I can't imagine as a kid you were like, I am going to work in gauges. I mean, or maybe you did. I don't know. I mean...
No, it was actually the opposite. I actually didn't want to join the family business at first. I went to school at Bryant College, and I actually went in for an IT degree.
Really?
Yeah. So completely different from what I think my father was hoping me to do, but it's something that I wanted to follow at the time. I ended up just kind of coming out of college. Worked for Dell for a little while, and then I ended up just out of circumstance, everything kind of fell apart, and I came back home, in which my dad offered me a job again, and after one or two more attempts, I finally said yes and got into the business.
So a little birdie told me, you skipped over it, but a little birdie told me that you tried to be a professional poker player in there somewhere. Is that is that true?
I'll say semi-professional. Okay. Because
were you getting paid to play?
Well, no, you never get paid to play. Well, at least not at my level. But I would say I was putting the hours, up at a casino for 40 hours a week, and basically, that was my full-time job where I was doing that for basically the week, and if I made enough money, I would leave for that week and just hold on to it. And if I didn't, well, then I just had to wait until the following week. Yeah.
So you were disciplined in your poker?
Oh, not at first.
No.
Oh, no. That was something you learned. I would say one of the biggest takebacks for me is that I learned a bit more patience, a bit more organization, a lot of humility. And it was definitely just a very good learning experience for me, and really on a way to money management was a big thing too. So you had to be, and you had to be diligent. You had to keep that money away from your actual spending money. So it was a very important thing for me.
So were you saying that you, after a couple of years of trying to make it in professional poker, you left with some lessons you're applying in OR now?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah. You can really read a room after, I mean, it's all about people. They always say it's a lot of luck, but poker's about 90% skill, only 10% luck.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of mathematics. That's another thing that I'm pretty good at. I was always good at math. Not the biggest English person, but the math skills for me were always there, and math plays a big big part of poker. So.
Do you take some of those lessons from your poker days that you feel like you even apply today, like in what you're doing?
Of course. I mean, I've probably read like 7, 8, 9 poker books, or just different, psychological books on how to read people and how to look, at a different situation. And really, it's the same thing. You could be in a room, and you could think things are going your way, and you could see people's reactions, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I got to change what I'm doing because I'm either losing people in this meeting, or people aren't reacting well to what I'm saying. So I really got to change my direction to figure out, how can I make more people attuned to what I'm trying to say.
Is it so that, like, you got that people stuff under pressure? I imagine you had to make a lot of quick decisions under pressure.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Sometimes it was quick and under pressure. Sometimes in poker you could just sit there and just think, or at least try and throw someone off in that way too. So
learn how to sort of manage your time and then
big time.
And then control your own emotions.
Very much so. I mean, there's nothing more humbling than sitting there, and I think my record was I folded 62 hands in a row without playing a single hand, just because they weren't worth playing.
That's some discipline right there.
Yeah, that's hard to do.
I feel like there's a book here, Pete. I feel like there's a leveraging poker and business book.
I have leveraging book. Okay, we'll talk about that after this podcast.
I think this is maybe a separate show. All right, so you decide to get into the family business. Poker and IT are behind you, and you're getting to the family business. What happened then?
So really, I mean, I'll be honest, when I first came into it, I thought it was going to be a quick speed bump in my life, maybe a year or two, get myself together, figure out what I wanted to do. And so during that time, I was just trying to figure things out. It wasn't until about 4 years, maybe 5 years in where I finally said, I really like this. This is starting to grow on me. And then I went and got my EMBA at University of New Haven. That's when it was really a turning point for both me and my father. And then we really started to sit down more when he saw I was serious on a monthly basis, where even though I was in a middle management position at the company, I was still able to see, the presidential kind of roles, and he would come in and, show me some things that really got me involved, and then really got me interested in it. So I guess I got a little bit better path than most people, or I had a better opportunity, and I kind of saw my potential ceiling within the organization, which really started to drive and motivate me maybe a little bit more.
Ceiling meaning you saw that you had a path to grow more into the business, seeing like a future that you could be excited about.
Yeah, to eventually hopefully take it over, or at least be a part of the management team at a minimum. And I've done obviously both those roles now. So the dream has been achieved. I've only been living it for a little less than 2 years now, and I'm excited to see where I can bring the company to the next level.
Where did you start in the company?
So I will technically, you want to go back to my real younger days, where I'm probably sleeping chips on the floor of the machine shop when I'm not really doing much, or I did a couple summers while I was in college, and I was working the production floor, calibrating, assembling, doing basically everything. The actual position I took over was actually the assistant production supervisor. So basically the lowest level position there was management-wise in the company, and that's where I started. And I was in production management for about 12 years. I was actually supposed to move a little bit sooner into the front, but I think it was the 2014 recession that kind of held us up. And I just said, hey, whatever we need to do to keep the company going, I'll stay here, for a couple of years until we kind of get right again, and then I can move up there. And that's basically what we did before I moved into sales. Then basically took over an executive vice president role before I became president. So
that's it. It's funny. A lot of the successes that I hear about involve somebody who's touched all aspects, of the business. Do you feel that sort of, literally, like you said, you swept up, you did production, you ran productions. I don't know, people who haven't done it fully appreciate kind of the breadth and scope of what it means to sort of be sort of planning and scheduling and managing production. But, then just tell me a little bit about your feelings about how that experience or those experiences help prepare you for running the whole company.
Sure. They're invaluable. You can't put a price on them. They teach you everything about the gauge. So everything from the ground up. You're working alongside people from every, group within the company. So from the entry level all the way up to the management staff. And it's just a great experience. Plus, when you want to make decisions, where I am now, I understand how everything works. So it makes it a lot easier to really encompass the entire company in those decisions that I need to make. And it's not like I only know a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I really know everything, other than maybe like physically designing, one of the gauges on SolidWorks, or running a CNC machine in our machine shop. I know how it operates. I have a good level of understanding of it, but I've never physically done that portion. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got my hands on a couple machines every now and again, but never really to run the gauge like my skilled operators can do.
So I know that kind of getting lean infused in the business and doing a lot of digital stuff was really important to you. As you made decisions to like get lean in the business, I guess first tell us how you did that, because I think that's good. But I'd be interested, as you tell the story, to think about how your experience doing it helped you, or maybe didn't help you, get lean to be more effective in the business.
So lean was really my father's initiative. And I came in the business in 2002 in December, and he had started lean maybe 6 months before that, or at least got the ball rolling with talking to a couple groups and consultants that he was going to bring in. So really from the get-go, I knew about lean and started to do lean, but I saw the company before I came into the business and how it was working, and just such a large transformation. Now, we've been doing lean for over 2 decades now. It's made a big change. One of the biggest changes was, before we started lean, we had lead times of like 5 to 6 weeks for our products. And through much transformation that happened over years and years and years, and I would probably say the bulk of the work happened over 6 to 8 years, in different batches and improvements, but we eventually took that lead time from 4 to 5 weeks down to 7 days. And that's only 7 days on standard stuff. You could still ship things next day, or maybe even the same day on certain products that were available for people that really needed them urgently. But cutting the lead time down by basically 4 weeks to ship was a huge benefit for us, and it's still probably one of our strategic initiatives that we put forward, and is still beneficial to our customers. So.
When you and so that's something that's never ending, right? Always never. Like continuous improvement. So you bought into that, and then you added digital. Like, tell me about kind of your thoughts around that. Like, what was the digital technology that's really important to you? And why?
Well, for me, one of my first initiatives as president was to change our ERP system over. When I first came in, we were basically using the same ERP that I first came to the business with. It was put back in 1998. It was a DOS-based system that I'm still working on here in the 2020s, and I was really worried that someone was going to tell me, "Hey, you need to, we're not supporting this anymore." And
I'm sure people were saying that along the way.
Oh yeah, but my team manager was, but she stopped trying to put the initiative through because it just was never selected. And I'm like, no, we're doing this now, because the initiative took us about 22 months, very successful from selecting it to implementing it. But my biggest fear was someone was going to say, we don't support it anymore, and now you have 6 months to do what we took 22 months to do. And so that was very important. But the ERP is really the brain and the backbone of the company. And now we have the new ERP. We can link it digitally to our website. We can link it digitally to our CNC machines, and it really starts our digital transformation in our company to get things more interactive, and really starting to pull the data analytics from everything from the setup time of the machine to the runtime, to eventually linking that to our customers and distributors on the website, where maybe they can have a login where they can build the gauge through our product configurator that's just not available right now on the website. So
just sort of streamline that. So why do you think that, say, this ERP project didn't make it to the top of the list for so long? When you like, I could see you're passionate about it, see you kind of get the value of it. why do you think it took so long to sort of take on that challenge?
It's very easy to see the value of a new product and new revenue. It's kind of harder to envision, or to be honest, maybe a lot of people are just scared of taking on the initiative, because it is a big investment, but at the same time, it's really a lot of resource time. And you can definitely tell that it stressed the employees through the whole process. It's not an easy process to go through. And you're compiling all this information that you got to hold on to, and at least take a couple of years of, and put it into the new ERP. It's just very resource intensive. And being a smaller manufacturer, resource time is the number one, thing in the company that you're always looking at and trying to figure out how can we get more of it. And that's what I looked at with the ERP. Hopefully that's going to automate a lot of your processes, give you more resource time so you can better apply your people's time to other things.
So you said it was really successful, and I'd just be curious to share with the audience, especially for other manufacturing leaders out there who are thinking about this, like kind of maybe walk us through your view of, how you did it so successfully. For one thing, sounds like you didn't rush it.
No,
And
didn't rush it.
yeah.
So first thing we did was we applied for a grant and got half of it paid for.
There you
that
go.
was number one. So, going out and securing the funds to make it easier than totally funding it yourself. The second
Where'd you
thing,
get that money from?
we got it from a grant called NETAC, which is a federal level grant, and they're more based on foreign competition, and we're global, globally sold product. So we were able to apply for that through the NETAC grant. And
How did you know that existed?
we actually found that through the help of both Constep and CCAT. So those are two great, resources here in Connecticut that every manufacturer should know about. And if they don't, they should look it up right after this.
Pick up the phone.
Basically. No, but basically there's just a lot of resources within Connecticut that manufacturers and other businesses can take advantage of. And they've been really good to our company and a lot of others that I know that we work with and talk to. And that's how we initially found that information. And then through them, they helped us find the consultant that helped us identify which ERP we're going to go with. And then they even helped us identify the third-party group that was going to install the ERP system. Wow. But again, I can't take credit for that. I can take credit for starting the initiative, but I always like to surround myself with smarter people than myself. And it's really those people that made the project happen and successfully. We had a great project manager. She's a pit bull. And we got a really good credit from our third-party group. And they said, I've been doing this for 23 years, and we finally now know that the project can actually work to plan.
If you got a good partner. So,
Yeah.
respect. You got to have the people around you to get the
Correct.
stuff done, right? That's huge. And kudos to you for building a team that's strong. When you sort of set the direction up front and you thought about, here's the resources I need to allocate internally to make this project successful, like, how did you think that through and tell people, hey, listen, I guess I'm making some assumptions. You have to tell me if this even happened, but hey, you're going to have to make time. Because I think too often, whether it's an ERP or anything, somebody sort of says, hey, this is a really good idea. Can you do this? Without saying, what are you not going to do to take up that time? How did you guys think through that?
And that's where kind of the lean mindset comes in. We have instilled strategic planning into our annual process. It starts in September, usually goes sometimes into December. And what we're doing in there is we are taking all of our initiatives that we want to look at. We take our 3 to 5 year goals, our 1 to 3 year strategies, and our 1 year projects. And what we do is we map them out. We make sure that they still align with our company direction. And then we basically do like a KJ Affinity where we pick, okay, which one we're going to do. Well, this time I didn't let anyone pick. And this time I said, the only thing we're doing is the ERP project starting next year.
KJ, what did you say?
KJ Affinity. It's basically when you put a whole bunch of all the projects you want to do the next year, and then everyone gets like 2 or 3 dots, and you kind of like pick which projects you want to do by how many dots are selected. And
sort of vote it out.
You vote it out. But this time I was like, no, we're not doing that. We're doing the ERP, and that's the only thing we're going to do. And it was the right move because we were probably working 120, 130% of the time just on the ERP. It was all in, and it was the right decision because it was successful.
Did it have a negative impact sort of financially on earnings in the time that you were doing it to get there? Were you able to maintain?
We were actually able to maintain through it. That was definitely a stretch, and that's where the extra time came in because you're still trying to have every department head manage the transfer, or at least sign someone in each department to manage the ERP transfer while still trying to do your day to day. So we were definitely working a lot of overtime during that stretch of 22 months. A little bit less in the early on because the first 8 months was the consultant was doing most of the work when they were researching which ERPs, and we had tried for about a month and a half before everyone on my management team said, we don't know enough about this, we're going to screw this up, and that's when we really got the consultant involved through NETAC to make that happen.
And so in the end of the day, it was more like 14 months of like heavy on it because the first bit was just a selection criteria.
Correct.
Doing all that stuff. Do you think?
But that's just as important. Don't.
No.
Make sure in the
Dude,
process.
I mean, it's the golf shot, right? If you the first shot off the tee, that's going to be your most important shot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because where that ends up is going to be the biggest predictor of your success of getting onto the green and in the hole on time.
Correct.
when you talk to other manufacturers, and I know you do, and we'll get to that in a second because you're really involved in the community, do you find that other people are less inclined to just bite the bullet and hire a consultant and sort of, put out that sunk cost to do it? And was that a key foundational aspect of your success?
I would probably say that that's definitely part of it. Again, we tried the program we tried the project for about a month and a half before we were like, we need some outside help. Like we're trying this on our own. We're smart people, but we're not that smart, and we need someone else with the expertise to make this be successful. And it was really a collaborative decision by the whole group to make that change, to get the consultant in. But there's a lot of times where, I bring up the word consultant even amongst my team. They're like, no, we're going to do it ourselves. That's not going to happen. But a lot of times you need that extra outside help, even if you got to pay for it. And well, you got to pay for it. Let's be honest.
If you want it to be any good, you do.
Yeah. But there are times when I think your teams can manage as long as you allocate the resource time for it and you really empower your employees. But then there's times where maybe you want to do it a little bit quicker or more efficient, and that's where the outside help really comes in and makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you guys think about, and how do you think about sort of continuing to advance the product? A lot of times you find companies where, the founder was a little bit of the mad scientist, which, and I mean that in all positive ways, which it sounds like your grandfather had a lot of that in him. But, all innovations sort of become old news, right? After a while. How do you guys think about continuing to have that sort of research and development part of Orange Research?
So that's important to us because we definitely have a very mature product in its life cycle.
That's a good way to put it.
And we've had some new products that have come out in the last 5 years or so that are maybe more derivatives than new products, but they're still fairly successful. One initiative that I've really started to dive into, and that again we're in the process of looking to use the manufacturing voucher program through the state, is 3D additive. I think that's going to be a big future line of products and of opportunities that manufacturers can take advantage of. And we're going to start to dive in ourselves. We bought a smaller machine just to do prototyping, which a lot of people have done. But now we're going to take the next step and move into more of a production setting where we're trying to produce things, whether it's component parts for our products that we're buying outside where we can save some money on, or eventually down the line, hopefully be able to print parts for other people if we can make the investment in the machines that maybe other people don't want to make the investment, but have us as an outlet where we can maybe produce it for them.
And what would be the benefit of the additive approach as opposed to what you're doing today? From what's the value to the business?
So we say additive because you're building up material from nothing, where we already have our machine shop as our subtractive side.
Right.
So additive really brings a different viewpoint on how you can look to reinvent your product, or some of the kids these days in schools are so smart or so inventive with how they can rethink what you've been doing for so long, that there's opportunity there to maybe even make the parts smaller but still do the same thing that you're doing now, or take a look at I don't want to talk about AI because that just brings in a whole other level, but that's being involved in it now too, where it can just totally rethink it from not even like a human mind and really start to build things up in a different way. But it's also quick to market, and it's just if someone comes up with an idea halfway across the world, all they need to do is send you a file, stick it into your machine, and you could print it for them.
So it's interesting. It sounds like on this aspect, you're sort of betting on an idea that something could come out of it without 100% of a clear outcome at the end, but just saying we always got to be trying something new and different to remain relevant. Yeah. And this is an opportunity to do that. Is that that's the read? Am I getting that read?
Yeah,
right?
It is. But at the same time, there's some ROI benefit to it because there are some component parts we've already identified that we purchase outside. They got kind of a long lead time. They're definitely much more expensive than what we've found through the research that we can do with the 3D additive. And so there's also a benefit that we can, come in and really take control. It's really a supply chain thing as well. You can now take control more of your supply chain by being able to produce things more in-house and not have to go outside or be dependent on other vendors, which we've all been through in the last 2 to 3 years, which has just been a crazy situation. So it's another really way to control your supply chain too.
Yeah, no, it's great. You sort of have obvious is the right word, but you sort of have a definitive ROI plus the opportunity to find stuff you haven't even thought about. You haven't even thought about yet. Yeah, that's cool.
And I visited a bunch of other companies within the state that are already doing 3D additive successfully. So a lot of what you find right now in the industry is that people talk about prototyping. It's really hard to get past people to the production. And truthfully, we really didn't get anyone to say production to us. But it's one of those gut feelings where you just say to yourself, it's going to happen, it's going to work. And if everyone's telling you no, then that's the time to just say, yes, I think we can do this, because guess what? No one else is doing it. So we're just going to do it.
Yeah. Get you doing something nobody else is doing is a great way to stand out.
Yeah.
How do you think about engaging with your customers to understand like what future product lines could be out there? Like what do you guys do to kind of get close to the customer?
I mean, voice of the customer is a huge part of the business. Talking to the end customers is not always the easiest thing to do in our industry, especially being a component part, maybe on a much larger piece of machinery.
I was thinking the same thing. So it may be a little difficult there, but
it is. But at the same time, getting the way we kind of have a distinct advantage is our level of customer service. One thing we always say that we don't want to do is you always want a person on the phone. You don't want any kind of automated response and just always be available for your customers. That's been one thing we've heard from a number of our competitors throughout the after COVID came around, and we seem to be one of the people that will still call you back or be available for you to talk to, and that's been a big competitive advantage for us. So that's really important to talk to the customers.
So I mean, you mentioned something earlier, which I want to kind of pull back to, which is you were able to get a federal grant because international competition. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how have you seen international competition impact your business? What are you doing about it? Like, that's something I know manufacturers think about all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, you talk about the competition from China or anywhere else, and it's always relevant, especially China. They'll take your products, because again, we're not so technically inclined right now. Our instrumentation, it's not that complex that, after a while you can definitely take it, re-engineer it, and try and compete against us. We've been doing it long enough where we've got that competitive advantage of having everything in place and all the supply chain set up. But then you just talk about the labor difference, and that cost is so huge compared to the U.S. versus other countries that mm-hmm. The gap in information or quality definitely shrinks a lot quicker with that price difference. So it's just something you got to be aware of, and you got to make sure that you're still doing the R&D and what you need to do to kind of keep that extra step ahead of your competitors out there internationally. So it's important.
Do you sell internationally, or you mostly sell it?
We do. We sell internationally. We do direct and we do distribution. So we got distribution throughout the U.S. and in about another 12 or 13 international distributors that we've got everywhere.
So I want to pivot to the manufacturing community and your engagement there, because I think that's really interesting and important to talk about. But we just sort of skipped over something early on, which is some of the actual applications of where the gauges are. And I just realized, I think it would be interesting to know, so where do they go into? Sure. We talked about sort of the flow differential and whatnot, but who's using these? Where do they go in?
So first, I'll just go over a number of industries. So we're in oil and gas, water, wastewater, we're in power gen, semiconductor, we do some military, some medical. I mean, we're really a very eclectic gauge when it comes to just being able to go into anything. Because basically we can measure differential pressure or flow through basically any kind of piping in any application. So really we're a gauge you can just kind of plug and play into a lot of different applications based on what it is. Our big niche in the market is we can do low measurement with high line pressure. So,
low measurement, high line pressure.
Yeah, so we can measure down, let's say, as low as 12 to 15 inches of water with a measurement of about 1,500 PSI of line pressure. Or, you take another gauge where you can measure down as low as maybe 80 PSI, but you're measuring at a level of maybe 10,000 PSI line pressure.
Okay.
So it's really that's where our kind of niche is in the market against our other instrumentation.
Where you need to keep the differential really small, but the overall number of pressure is really, really high.
Yeah, where turn down is an issue sometimes. So
turn down?
Turn down is how much you can actually read at the low end based on how high of a differential you're trying to read on the scale.
And so like where would someone use that? Like what, so tell me where.
Sure. So a lot of our applications, it all started around filtration that we've already talked about a couple of times. Our gauge also goes on a lot of cryogenic tanks, Linlock SLAR, liquid oxygen, nitrogen, argon. And we can also go in, diesel engines with a DP switch, differential pressure. And we're on a port side radar system on a class destroyer for the Navy. Plus we're on, machinery for deep earth drilling, those kind of applications, and we're on offshore oil refineries, just going through those large piping tubes,
measuring the like the flow of the materials.
Yeah, the flow or the differential going through those lines, and then civil applications that may be extra customer facing, like we could be on your AC unit on an evaporator or a condenser, inside your house.
Really?
Yeah, Carrier, York, we're on a couple of those particular units, some JCI products as well. So
most of the stuff you referenced this earlier. Most times, this is a component inside of a larger unit. Yeah. Like I might have a Carrier, and I think I do actually, air conditioning unit at home, but I'm not going to know what the gauge is.
You may see the gauge face because it may be behind a panel or just plugged in somewhere. Sometimes you'll see us on the outside of the instruments. Like we're always on the outside of obviously a cryogenic tank, which could just
it can't be in there.
No, it can't be in there. But yeah, I mean, basically, or we could just be on like a panel, that switch just may be the diesel switch. It just may be hooked up to a light where the light indicates. So you never really see our gauge ever. Only the people that build the engines really know what they're looking at.
But that's what's triggered the dummy light that says, "Hey, time to change the oil," or whatever.
Change filter, change oil, whatever it indicates.
So something I just wanted to pivot to as we're getting, I know long on time, but just. Talk to me about your involvement. I know you've been deeply involved in manufacturer CT.
Sure.
You already mentioned, CCAT earlier, taking advantage of different programs. You're out there.
Yeah.
So just first question is, why commit your time to that stuff?
Well, first of all, I mean, they've helped my company out. So I mean, it's just giving back and really to be interconnected with the Connecticut manufacturing community is a great community to be involved in. Everyone wants to help everyone out. It's very important. And really, if you're not connected, you're not taking advantage of the programs that are in Connecticut. If you're not taking advantage of those programs, then you're really behind everybody else. And Connecticut does have a lot of advantages with Paul Lavoie, the chief manufacturing officer, different organizations like CBIA or Manufacturer CT. These are all great organizations led by very smart people that just want to help out manufacturing in the state or businesses in general, but definitely manufacturing is the world that I live in. I've been a part of Manufacturer CT before when it was New Haven Manufacturing Association, but now we've definitely branded the organization a little bit differently, trying to be more statewide, get out there to more companies, and really just get connected to everyone, and just be like-minded to help push manufacturing within state legislation, and just to be a part of the community and making a difference is very important, because I was helped out once, and that's what I want to do moving forward with with anyone else that can help.
You're paying it forward. I mean, how often do you what kind of manufacturer CT events do you go to, and what kind of value do you extract for your time you put in?
Well, I just recently got appointed to the executive board, so I'm meeting once a month with them, and then I'm on a couple of committees, so I meet two to three times a month right now with manufacturer CT. But I'm at most of the events. Sometimes we'll just do like a meet and greet at a brewery somewhere. We have our annual golf event, which is just always well attended with all the members, sponsors, and everything. We also have the annual dinner coming up. That's going to be Manufacturing Month in October, so that'll be a very exciting time for us as well. We got a new keynote speaker coming, so that'd be really, really good to see.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I mean, so a lot of social stuff you're getting out of it. Do you find business value as well?
Oh yeah, of course. I forgot to mention that aspect of it. We go on plant tours. We see other facilities. That's such a very important part of it too. There's not a time where I haven't gone on a plant tour where I haven't tried to pull one or two ideas out. I go right back to my company. I start talking about it. They're like, okay, slow down. You've seen your new shiny thing. Now give it a day or two, and then let's talk about it a little more seriously when you're not all high on the concept of what you want to bring in here and try and change. So
it's good to get out there and see how other people are doing it.
It's so valuable. I mean, whether it's a new form of technology, the way they run the business, maybe it's even just the way they report out on different things that just make things more visible. All those different factors really contribute to a better process, a better production line, or a more involved or engaged staff. I mean, that's really important too, is just trying to empower all your people, get more people involved and engaged. And then, for a while in Lean, we were doing like a quarterly tour of different companies, and we would take everyone from production up to management. It wasn't just, let's bring the management team. It was like, let's bring in the production guys, because they're going to pull as much ideas from this tour as someone, up at the top. So
yeah, get people out there to see what else is going on, get their juices flowing too.
Exactly.
Help make things.
Yeah, because you bring the same people all the time, you're going to get the same ideas. But if you bring everyone in the company, or at least a lot of different people, you're going to get a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different ideas you bring to the company at every level, which is important.
Probably helps them to grow too, I would think.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Maybe makes them think even pretty good about the company, I would imagine too.
Yes, for sure.
Everybody likes to be invested in, it turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Pete, man, it's been awesome having you on and hearing what's going on. I'm going to ask you a couple of wrap-up questions and we'll balance it out. When you take time off, are you a staycation guy or exotic destination?
I would not say exotic destinations. I wouldn't mind it every now and again, but mostly we do family trips up to the Cape. With all of my family. I got 3 siblings and my dad, and we'll go up and just have a good time. Mostly in the U.S. We'll pop out every now and again, but mostly
the Cape's your happy spot.
Yeah. Well, I still got 2 younger kids, so we're almost at the point now where we'll see the definite benefit of having them out somewhere more exciting like that. So
if you had to do something other than be president of Orange Research, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what'd you spend your time doing?
Oh man, that's a really tough question. I got a bunch of hobbies. I play hockey and I like that a lot. What would I do though? I don't know. I mean, I love manufacturing. It's hard for me not to think about manufacturing these days. Maybe I would do something crazy with the newer technology, like I'm thinking about with 3D additive, but I think I would probably be involved in some form of creating something, because it's just, once you've experienced it, it's just something that you can't get from behind a desk at a computer. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you can do stuff like that. You can create stuff from behind a computer, but building it with your hands, feeling a physical product, that's something I've kind of grown to really appreciate.
It's good to be doing something that you love. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite business book?
Ooh, favorite business book. My father was an avid reader, and I've read a lot. I remember going back to Good to Great was a great book. Maybe not as relevant as it used to be.
Oh, it's absolutely.
I've been kind of diving into the EOS books as well. Those are some pretty powerful, impactful book. Yeah, nice. Traction. Yep. Other than that, man, there's just so many, but a lot of them are lean based. So nice. The lean system. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now.
Pete, what's something that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
A lot of times you can't do it alone. You got to do it with people around you. Whether that's motivation from outside of work, finding the right outlets, and just finding people to trust in you and confide in you when you it's what you want to do. I think that's important. You can be a strong motivator and you can do a lot on your own, but at some point in your life you will need some help somewhere, and it's important to understand that you can reach out and really lean on people every now and again. There was something someone said to me is during prosperity you know your friends, during adversity you know who your friends are.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. What's something, Pete, that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Pete, and if young Pete would listen to you, it'd make a real positive impact on his life?
Probably would have kicked young Pete in the butt a lot sooner, and instead of kind of like waste my first four years at the company and really trying to erase a black mark that I kind of made for myself by not taking it as seriously early on, I would have really reinvested in myself earlier on and said, hey, this is what you want to do, put more time into it early on. And I think it would have made a much more impactful difference sooner than when I actually finally did in the company.
So now I'm going to ask a follow-up on that, which is, why do you think, what was in your mindset in the first 4 years and what changed?
Well, I went in thinking that this is not what I wanted to do. So it's really hard to get on board with something that you don't think is your future.
You think it's a temporary way station.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, this is a paycheck. I'm doing what I'm doing. And I had a very just, employee mindset, or some employees mindset, where it's just, that this is what I'm doing for now and I'll figure out what I'm going to do later. And that was the wrong way to approach it. I think anyone coming into a job should treat it like it's what they're going to do, because they are doing it. And really just put all your effort into it. And then if it's not what you want to do, just move on to the next thing, but don't treat it like, don't treat a job like it's not important, because every job is important, whether you realize it or not. So
what changed after 4 years? Did something particular happen? I mean, that's a really good insight you just had, but I'm just curious if something changed.
I think I became a little bit I wouldn't say I was distant from my family, but I came a lot closer to my family over those 4 years that I kind of moved back into Connecticut. Was just kind of around my family more. I saw maybe the passion in what my dad was doing and what my grandfather had done, and it just kind of became a little infectious to me. And again, like I said, just kind of getting my hands on things, seeing the changes that I made that were actually starting to produce results. And I kind of like that. And problem solving. I mean, manufacturing, if you're not a problem solver in manufacturing, you better be. And that's just really exciting to do, because there's always new problems that pop up that you got to figure out and try and figure out the best solution. And then if that solution doesn't work, you make it better in a different way. So
spark that passion, and then here we are. Awesome, man. Pete, well, congratulations on all of it. It's really exciting. Pleasure having you on. Look forward to keeping in touch and watching OR keep on growing.
I hope so. Thank you very much for having me.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.